The pandemic has made child abuse much harder to spot. When kids aren't in school, it's easier for signs of mistreatment to go unnoticed. Our Kelly Kennedy talked with people at the National Children's Advocacy Center about the challenges the pandemic has created.
Because of the pandemic, kids are now separated from their teachers and doctors. These people are often the ones who notice and report abuse.
When the pandemic first started and everything was really shut down, the numbers went way down because there was just so much disconnection, and it's getting a little bit better now because even kids that are doing all of their schoolwork at home, a lot of it's virtual. And so there is somebody interacting with them and checking on them.
But even if teachers actively check in, kids sometimes only feel comfortable talking to their peers. And with limited connection to their friends, kids can easily get stuck in abusive situations. Not only are cases going unreported, the pandemic is putting kids at a higher risk of child abuse. Obstacles like job loss and financial hardships can lead to family violence.
We also have families where they've kind of burned through their cushion, their emergency savings, and, maybe their work is looking different than it did before. There's just a lot of feeling like this is going on for a long time and it's depleting the resources, I think.
Substance abuse is linked to child neglect and has become an even bigger problem during the pandemic.
Just the length of this pandemic and not knowing what's going to happen next and when is there going to be relief can really tax anybody's coping skills.
If you're overwhelmed or just feel that you're at the end of your rope, reach out for help. For more information and resources, you can head to rocketcitynow.com. Putting the Valley first, Kelly Kennedy, WZDX News.